Hi, I'm Milla, and I'm welcome to my pilot little podcast for my a possible avenue to do stuff with and talk about things, because I like talking about rambling at games, and rambling about games is fun, and I like doing it. So so this might be a bit rough around the edges, but yeah, who knows if I like it, and it'll get better. Okay, so I'm going to structure this little thing into like 3 sections. So first section will be on like some game news and my comments on it, and then the next section will be about what I've been playing, which will often be older games rather than brand new titles. And finally, I'll do a more longer ramble at the end about a specific topic, and that specific topic's going to be about the Twitch hate raid stuff, because that's the whole thing that deserves a bit of its own. I'm just prefacing it now, so when I talk about a couple of things that I've put in for the gaming news bit, it's like people like, oh, why is it not there? Well, it's at the end because there's more to talk about. So okay, I'm trying to focus a bit on, like, I don't want to be moaning all the time in these things, so it's kind of like I'll have a mixture of good and bad. But obviously when you're talking about things like games, especially when you talk about the business side and the working conditions of employees and stuff, you do have to get into serious stuff that can be quite bad. So as for gaming news, the first one's going to be about, because bear in mind I'm into quite niche games in general, so a lot of these games are games people won't have heard of. But the first bit I wanted to talk about a bit was about the localization announcement for Demon Gaze Extra, which is a PS4 and Switch port of the Vita Dungeon Crawler, and it's coming to later this year, December 9th outside of Japan. It's just come out in Japan like a couple of days ago at the time of recording this, and it's been handled by Clouded Leopard Entertainment, which is some Asian company that's mainly does Chinese stuff and does a lot of Falcom stuff as well. And and I'm surprised they were doing it not nicer, but that's beside the point. And I'm looking forward to it because I want to give it another try, because a while ago, because I mentioned it came out on the Vita, and I picked up the Vita version like years ago, and as a first person dungeon crawler, they tend to be quite niche games. The developer, Experience Inc., they're known for developing dungeon RPGs, and that's what their specialty is, even though I personally don't like most of their games. It's the only one I played I did like. I love the visuals and the music, especially because it features my favourite Vocaloid, IA, which is composed into songs. Like, you hear the battle theme and you hear it, the sounds, the vocals. It's really nice and I love it. I did have to put it down though, because it got really grindy and I did burnt out and I really struggled with it afterwards. It's like I just put it down, and then sooner or later I sold it. One, because I needed money, and in that I just wasn't going to play it again because it was grindy. But I do want to try it again. The Asian English version is physical, so even in the West it's coming out digital. There is a physical version, and I do want to get it, especially because I'm hoping it'll be a bit more affordable, or an import site stocks it, and I imagine they will, which even though I probably won't get it straight away because of things like money and stuff, but eventually I will get hold of that physical copy and give this another genuine try. So yeah, the next one's kind of more like I'm looking for an excuse to talk about this a bit in the podcast, and that was about NIS America announced a couple of other releases this week. So things like Labyrinth Legend, which was a dungeon crawler, I think, and I never heard of this or the other game. And the other one's Shadow Corridor, which is coming out next month, and it's an indie game which was released in Japan and published by Register, which is a very small company that mainly is known for visual novels. And I'm surprised to see these both come out afterwards, especially for the Shadow Corridor. It's already out in Japan. It's been out since 2019, but only bringing over the Switch version only and not the PS4 version, which has also got English, and that's a bit strange, but I mean, for me, I don't really care much for these particular games, and it's like, I think one reason why, especially seeing a horror game like Shadow Corridor, is for those people who don't know, Nippon Ichi Software, which mainly do strategy RPGs, also have been developing lots of visual novels, including horror games. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. Like, there was actually a game they did called Murder Detective Jack the Ripper, which, well, is what it said in the tin. And other things like Yuri, so like they did a game called Yoritomosu, which is also horror, which, bear in mind, I don't know too much about these particular games, but at the same time, it's like, I really do want to see these brought to the West and nicer, or anyone else actually give a chance about them, and I do want to see that. And they just pretend they don't exist, and it's like, it's frustrating for me, because I kind of see that they'd probably be wary to actually bring them over because of things like money. And when, from a capitalist perspective, if it's not going to make money, they're reluctant to actually bring it over, which is just frustrating. And also from a PR perspective, it's like, you don't talk about things that are not officially been announced, but it doesn't change the fact it's still frustrating for me to kind of see news like this and think they can bring over a horror game from a third party, including Registar, which Nippon Ichi have also worked with to produce another game called Exile Election, which is kind of like a Danganronpa clone, which came out for the PS4 and the Vita years ago, which yeah, that's what I mean when I say they do a lot of obscure games, and I'd like to see them over here. It's not looking likely. Nippon Ichi also bought out a company called Fog, which made the Furaiki series, which is basically let's travel around parts of Japan on a bike and date anime girls. And including real photos, it looks great, and it's the kind of thing I think I'd really vibe to if it came over, which, yeah, I just wish I'd give a chance on these games, and it just frustrates you a bit seeing news like that and just thinking that, oh wow, they're not actually giving these games a chance again. I wish I'd at least acknowledged they exist, which is what the Koei Tecmo does with Rui Party, which is Otomi stuff, and it's like, I kind of respect the whole, like, let's acknowledge it exists, and even if we can't bring them over and we're just discussing the possibility, it'd be nice if Nippon Ichi actually talked about that, and not just ignore it and pretend they don't exist. Anyway, that's out of the way, and I'm going to move on to the next section now, which is what I've been playing, and I picked one game I started recently and one I finished about a week ago, I think. They're both 3DS games, and the first one is Project Cross Zone, which it's actually quite an old game. It's almost like 10 years old now. It was one of the first like Bandai Namco developed games, or published games actually, because this was actually developed by Monolith Soft. It's like an RPG crossover featuring like various characters from like Namco, Capcom, and Sega games. It's kind of like the spiritual successor to Namco Cross Capcom, which is a Japan-only PS2 game, which is basically like Cross Zone but only for Namco and Capcom. Take bits of everything from each company, like Street Fighter, Sakura Wars, Resident Evil, Xenosaga, Dot Hack, and just a whole bunch of sources. Tekken as well, and just, yeah, there's a lot. It's meant to be a strategy game, even though there's not too much strategy. It's basically don't let people's HP run out planning your moves, otherwise it's basically just let's pick a battle and start button mashing, and animations look amazing. It's like sprite based, and as well as some animations when you're doing the final moves, and it looks absolutely great, and I'm absolutely loving it so far. It's like I want to finish it basically, and one reason why is so I can play the second game afterwards, which has guest characters from Nintendo games. Has 3, so Chrome and Lucina for Fire Emblem Awakening, and what's her name? Fiora from Xenoblade Chronicles, and I kind of want to finish the first one so I can play that because I recognise more of the characters. Like, it's weird seeing these games like this because with a lot of these RPG characters, as the RPGs, a lot of them never came out in Europe, if at all. Like the Dot Hack games, for example. Of all the Dot Hack games, the first 4 games did, but like they get more expensive the further in you go and that kind of thing. Most of the Xenosaga series, as well as Super Robot Wars, because there's one Super Robot Wars game, there's a crossover. I do like it what it is, and just like it makes no sense plot wise, but I love it, and all these characters coming together. Even though like the not knowing where the source material comes from does kind of add to the confusion, especially if you're not too into like Japanese stuff. But I'm gonna play more of it. And as for the game I kind of finished, I mean I say finished, I just burnt out and didn't want to do the final boss, but might try again later. And that's 7th Dragon 3, code VFD. This is also a dungeon RPG, but it's definitely on the higher budget end and is third person. While this is the 4th game in this series, but it's the first one that got localized, the other 3 are Japan only. And like I kind of like see it as more like Edge Runners' half sister because it features similar staff, like Yuzo Koishiro is a composer, and there's also class customization and really unique setting. And some of the music's quite relaxing as well. Yeah, about this game, basically you make your own team and parties, and you go out to collect dragon samples, try to defeat a powerful dragon. And yeah, it was a really interesting game. I did like it overall. The music was good as well, but that's Yuzo Koishiro, so I'm quite biased. And the story was great as well, from what I did understand, because remember it's the 4th game in a series, and so if you haven't played the previous games, there are plot holes that people will miss. I think that's something that was quite noticeable to people who played the previous games. Like, I still enjoyed it, you can make sense of it, but it's also like, I think you'd benefit more from playing the previous games, which I haven't, but I do plan to. And also the other flaw is that gameplay does get a bit repetitive, where you go around and grinding and defeat dragons. At the same time, it's not too difficult a game, so it's fine. I do want to check out the other games down the line. It's like, all of them are fan translated, so there's 7th Dragon on the DS, which is more like a traditional RPG. And then there's the 2020 games on the PSP, which are basically closer to VFD. You even see the plot summaries of it in the in Code VFD when you do a couple of the side quests. So yeah, it's definitely a lot to it. Alright, on to the third topic, which is I've talked about, was the Twitch hate raids, and well, I don't think I need to explain what they are, but I'll just give a little summary where basically fascists use bots to swarm chats to cause harassment towards marginalised communities, to try to get them banned. It's just so much to go into, and it's just basically, it's just a lot, and to be honest, it's really exhausting. Like this week there was a Twitch blackout, and this blackout was actually had made an impact because it pushed down Twitch's readership figures down like 1 million, which is good compared to what it regularly is, which is about 4 or 5 million. Which is good because it means they're forced to take attention. And yesterday they sent this email basically saying we're working on this stuff. We can't tell you anything, but please bear with us, and that kind of thing. It's like it doesn't really feel like they care. And to be honest, I don't think they do. It's like part of it's because Twitch is owned by Amazon, and Amazon treat their own workers like shit. So it's not surprising that Bezos et al are like, let's just leave it. They don't give a shit. It's just a bit disgusting, to be honest. I mean, for me, it's like I've been wanting to stream for a while, and I've tried to stream twice. The first one was I did an hour-long stream with Sharon the Wanderer on using my Switch, which went well, I think. And then the second time, unfortunately, I had to stop after like 5 minutes because I ran into technical issues. And then I had a panic attack, which was unrelated, but now I'm trying to stream again, and it's really difficult to kind of get a head around it, especially like, am I going to get in a position to put myself under all this pressure to stream and focus on the game, focus on the tech, try to avoid external triggers that could trigger me, which in the case of what happened the second time was something that was just happened and no one's at fault, but also just fearing that even though I've got like 4 people that follow me, all the people I know, it's just mental energy trying to moderate a chat, and just like I shouldn't have to fear streaming only to find that Nazi bots will come into the chat and infest it and just send shit, and it's just vile. And it's like, fuck people like that, fuck anyone that supports that, and just, oh god, it's fucking disgusting. And it's just, especially for someone like me, like being autistic and just having the dysfunction that comes with that at times, and the stress of like juggling that, especially because I'm still kind of trying to adjust to the whole streaming thing, and it just scares me and makes me reluctant to even try on Twitch anyway. Like I've seen talk of like alternatives people are talking about looking into, which I think might have to be done, because if Twitch don't give a shit and people need to curate the space to feel safe, and it's what people will have to do. I mean, there's things like YouTube and Facebook, but there's also things like, I've got a list of pieces I've seen, but I haven't researched them, so I can't verify how good they are, but I think it's probably something I'm going to look into. And that's Trovo, DLive, Caffeine, Vim TV, Brime, Glimesh, and Altair. I don't know, but if any of them actually do basic curation and kick out Nazis, as well as paying more money to people that actually stream, because Twitch takes a 50% cut, which is ridiculous, especially for such a large organisation. Like Twitch is owned by Amazon, they don't need a 50% cut. It's just, fucking hell, it's ridiculous. It just feels like it's just another example of how, on a wider picture, that a lot of these social media companies, like, they don't give a shit about protecting minorities, because supporting fascism and hate speech gives money, and it's just fucking disgusting. And even so, it's like, even in case of protecting minorities, it also means like, if people are banned or get forced off social media, it can affect income, especially like disabled people like trans people and people of colour and other groups that struggle with maintaining employment because of hostile discrimination. And it's just, we can't fucking keep dealing with that shit. It's just ridiculous. Fucking pisses me off as well. But I'm glad that the campaign days had an impact, because Twitch need to do better and actually put things into place like ASAP, even if it's just temporary measures. And yeah, it's just ridiculous, because I think sooner or later people are gonna eventually give up on Twitch, basically. Yeah, that's a lot, and I think I'm actually gonna stop here. I'm hoping this recording's gone well, and if I like it and it received well, I might do more and make it a more regular thing, which I'm looking forward to it. So thank you so much for tuning in, and yeah, I'm recording this trial on YouTube as like a test because I've already got the channel. Give a like and that kind of thing. Thank you so much, and goodbye.